Hi friends, you're tuned in to Legal Means Business, a podcast by Leeway. We're joined by some amazing guests who help us identify how to take your legal function and career to the next level. I'm your host, Steph Smith, and we're talking all things legal ops and legal tech, as well as other critical skills needed to help you thrive in the evolving in-house arena. Don't forget, you can watch us on YouTube or listen on the go through Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy the conversation, please do hit subscribe and let us know what you think on social.
If you don't have the buy-in, it's really a no-go. I would never recommend rolling out CLM to a team that hadn't gotten buy-in from all the top stakeholders first, and that includes, in many cases, that does include your CEO, that includes your GC, head of legal, that includes head of finance, head of security, head of IT, if you have a head of procurement as well as your head of sales, because you really want everyone on board with the vision.
By now, there's no denying the rise of legal tech in the in-house legal community. And the most popular category in legal tech is, of course, contract management solutions, or CLM for short. With Leeway offering a CLM platform, we can't help but get excited about the huge potential of CLMs for in-house legal teams and their businesses. However, one challenge we're often asked about by in-house lawyers and legal professionals is how to secure buy-in from the various stakeholders across the business. And thankfully, in this episode, we're joined by the wonderful legal ops expert and legal tech enthusiast, Marie Widmer. Marie has established herself as a forward-thinking and effective legal ops professional during her various in-house roles with the likes of LinkedIn, Pinterest, and startup Daper Labs. And having implemented numerous platforms, today, Marie shares how to secure buy-in for your CLM from various stakeholders across the business. Marie, it is a delight to have you back on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to talk to you again, too.
I know. And we have an even more exciting topic this time round, and one that's quite close to my heart anyway, being from Leeway, a legal tech company. And we're going to be talking all about CLMs, and in particular, how to get buy-in for a CLM from your internal stakeholders. I guess to start, for the avoidance of doubt, could you just clarify and let us know what exactly a CLM is, please?
Yeah, of course. CLM is short for Contract Lifecycle Management. There's a lot of different variations of what these tools can do, but in its essence, it handles the intake, review, negotiation, and execution and retention process for contracts. So through the tool, you can build workflows, receive contracts, redline them, sign them, and then store them securely. And they're mostly cloud-based solutions.
Yeah, certainly. And as you say, I think CLMs are the whole life cycle of a contract, whereas I guess there are solutions on the market that are focusing on a particular part of the contract process as well.
Yeah, there's definitely some niche tools that you'll see. There are some that handle only front-end analytics or like the actual drafting, trying to capture the drafting process. And then there are some that handle just the storage, like a smart repository. And then there are some that just handle signatures, and then there are some that do bigger integrations into procurement or sales. So it's a big market right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's an exciting place to be. A lot of good things going on, and hopefully a lot of impact being felt and value being felt by in-house legal teams as well. So how would you know if your legal function or your company is ready for a CLM?
It's a great question. One of the things that as in-house teams, whether it's a GC or CLO about to hire their first legal ops lead or the first legal ops lead on a team, has to kind of look at the temperature of the company and see whether it's mature enough or whether it's the right time to bring in a tool like CLM. CLM tools, there are some low-cost options that you can break into a small team, as well as you could be ready for a larger, more expensive, time-consuming tool. So it's really just about reading the room and trying to make a decision. I think we've touched on that in previous episodes before about kind of how to buy a CLM or what to look at. But getting buy-in itself, obviously, the first thing you have to do is kind of diagnose where your company's at in maturity. There's no wrong time for CLM. I've rolled out CLM at, a Series B company, and I've rolled it out at, a later stage company, and I've seen it rolled out at public companies. And it really, at the end of the day, it has the same effect on the teams. It's just on a larger scale. So looking at whether the company's ready for CLM, there's a couple hints that I would say that I look at to see whether there is a benefit to bringing in CLM versus waiting longer. So one of them, of course, would be generation of sales contracts as a frustration point. So if you have a sales-based company, like if you're working for a SaaS provider, and there's a notable frustration with the amount of time it takes sales reps to generate a contract, turn it around, get it executed, follow up on it, likely it's due to a manual process, right? They're pulling, a Word template out of a G drive somewhere without version control. They're sending it out via email, following up with the customer via email. If the customer has requested edits, they're just forwarding those to legal via email. So it's kind of a slow, frustrating process. Things are getting missed. When you see signs like that, that might be a hint that something like CLM would be a benefit. As well as on the buy side, the procurement contracts, that's a whole separate kind of workload for a growing company. And you want to see where the frustration points are with that process. So is there a lack of transparency between legal and the rest of the business when it comes to submitting a procurement contract for negotiation? Or are we just consistently seeing sales, or other members of the business not submitting contracts to legal and just trying to go to finance or IT or get a credit card number to purchase what they need? So inconsistent review is another red flag for me. Another one is no designated signatories. Do we have the company running through, a single signature platform, or are there multiple accounts open that aren't being monitored? Do we actually know in the company who's going to sign? In some cases, it's only one executive who's signing, which also has its own host of problems, right? Because they don't have time to review everything and check everything and make sure that they understand the context behind the deal. More red flags include we talked about multiple signature accounts open. Also, storage of executed documents is inconsistent. So when you see different teams are using like Box or G Drive or
their desktop,
they're not sharing with each other. So that leads to problems. Kind of like we talked about above with the generation of sales contracts, right? Is if there's a general lack of understanding of whatever happened to a contract after it got signed, that's a big red flag. And that tells me that the company would have an appetite for CLM. Another one is, of course, an inconsistent review and approval process. So just a lack of understanding of when does legal come on board, when do privacy come on board, when does security come in, things like that, and what their requirements are. So not having that documented and not having an easy way for people to get access to the approvers is another sign.
I think for sure, like one of the kind of added benefits that we've experienced from working with our customers, obviously the major pain points that we've experienced generally have been the kind of friction in the sales, working with the sales team and trying to generate those contracts and get those contracts signed quickly is often a really big one. But yeah, a more kind of a subtle benefit that I think people have realized is the signatories, as you say, because this can be automated, right? And often you can set up kind of workflows so that it's triggered who needs to sign when, depending on different conditions such as deal value and things like that. So I think lots of our customers, certainly anyway, have invested in a CLM for a larger pain point, such as the friction in the sales team or trying to keep negotiation on one platform, but then are finding benefits such as you were saying, the designated signatories as well. So I think, there are a lot of benefits that you can experience when implementing or thinking about a CLM. And I think those are all great flags to start thinking about whether or not it would be valuable for your business at this time. So I guess let's say we know that there's a pain point and we know we want to address this and we can see the value that a CLM can offer. How important is it to get buy-in from other stakeholders across the company?
It's incredibly important. You have to have a really thorough understanding of what keeps your, executive team and your legal team up at night before you roll out a CLM. So understanding, is it a product-driven company? Is it a sales-driven company? Is the company, are they more concerned about risk this year? Like, are they gearing up to, deal with compliance issues? Or, what's the scariest point for them? Are they worried about privacy? Are they worried just about money? Are they worried about, maximizing the efficiency of their employees because we can't hire any more people this year? Especially even right now, heading into a recession with the layoffs we're seeing, using tech can be a way to maximize the resources you already have when done correctly. When not done correctly or not sold correctly to the company and so people aren't using it effectively, it can become a big pain point and it can actually take up more time and resources to try to repair. So getting buy-in if you don't have the buy-in, it's really a no-go. I would never recommend rolling out CLM to a team that hadn't gotten buy-in from all the top stakeholders first, and that includes in many cases, that does include your CEO. That includes your GC, head of legal. That includes head of finance, head of security, head of IT. If you have a head of procurement as well as your head of sales, because you really want everyone on board with the vision. As we kind of just touched on, a lot of administrative type red flags usually indicate to me that the company's ready for CLM because there's a lot of manual processes that can be kind of taken away by CLM, but reality is what you're selling is the strategic benefits of CLM, which is, integrations, merged processes, ease of access to, basically a service that these core teams are selling to the rest of the company. When you roll out contracts, you really are selling a service package, which is security approval, privacy review, legal review, finance approval, opening a PO, getting an invoice paid. Those are really kind of a suite of services that are kind of all fall under that CLM umbrella that you can sell to your internal clients. So you really need to make sure that your key partners are on the same page as you and have the same vision when it comes to using tech and kind of working together when building your processes.
Securing buy-in from your internal stakeholders is crucial before rolling out a CLM system. Without it, you run the risk of it being a resource drain rather than a resource maximizer. But how do you go about gaining that buy-in from stakeholders across the business? Well, first of all, it starts with understanding what those stakeholders actually care about. A great way to uncover this is by asking questions such as, what are their motivations and what are their priorities? Are they more concerned about risk this year? Are they gearing up to deal with compliance issues? Or are they thinking about maximizing the efficiency of their employees with the impending recession and it becoming harder to hire people? Asking questions like these will help you uncover what your stakeholders really care about, which will help you build the CLM case for their specific context and situation. And you touched on it there, but just to clarify, I suppose there's kind of two important questions, isn't there? I guess there's who do we need to convince to invest in to be able to invest in a tool, and who are the key stakeholders that you need to create buy-in with. Is it fair to say there's two distinct groups there?
Yeah, there are. So there's almost like there's the support services group that you have to work with closely to make the CLM a success. And then there's the stakeholders that have to buy into it. So the stakeholders that have to buy into it could be considered the CEO, the head of sales, head of product, head of marketing, because those are going to be your customers. And then the people that you have to get buy-in from at the same time are also going to be your partners, which are finance, procurement, IT, security, engineering, because they're going to be working with you on the back end to make sure it's a success.
Yeah, that makes sense. And at what stage should you be engaging these people?
I start engaging those groups of people the minute I get hired at a company. So it's day one for me, setting up meetings and it's not necessarily going into the meetings with a game plan ready, just starting to build those relationships. And that's as simple as just getting on a call once a week with those teams and saying, what do you do every day? What keeps you up at night? What are you happy about that you're already accomplishing? Are you proud of the way that you're servicing the company right now? If so, tell me about it. Because what I need to do is make sure that I don't roll out something that kind of replaces what the team was already doing correctly. I'm not coming in to take that credit away from anyone. I need to make sure that the solution I bring in is going to kind of fix the pain points while still highlighting the things that people are doing well.
Yeah, exactly. It almost does that, doesn't it? It kind of takes away the noise of the operational stuff that just has to happen. So I guess that both for the business teams and the legal team can focus on the more, I suppose, niche to their skill set and higher value work, which is pretty cool. In terms of practicalities, how can we achieve buy-in from these various stakeholders?
Yeah, kind of like the two categories you just mentioned, right? So the way that you would get buy-in on both sides is different. So if I'm getting buy-in from the person that's inevitably going to be my customer, I'm selling a couple things. First of all, I'm selling the promise of the service, which is that if you come to us with a CLM, you're not going to have to think about too many things after that. You're going to be able to just submit a request and we're going to take care of it. It's going to be transparent, organized. It's going to flow. We're not going to need as many hands on deck in order to complete the process. And it's going to be reliable. You're also selling the strategy behind it, right? So rolling out a CLM offers some key strategic benefits. One of them would be integrations between the departments. So whether that's merging your tools or your processes, that requires, that offers the company more, access to stability and as well as data. The other key benefit that you're selling, right, is cost savings and efficiency. You're taking less human hours, and you're kind of you're taking more administrative work off the legal and the support services teams too. So you're saving money, and then as well data mining. Using one tool, much less integrated tools, right, gives you access to a lot of key financial, risk-related, and legal data. So being able to harness that data and report on it, and show the company where they are at any moment's notice is kind of one of the ways that we're able to sell CLM at the top level. Because I think every company wants to know, right? They want to be able to click a button and know, like, what were our sales this quarter? Where are we falling behind? Where are we most at risk right now? So where do I need to put my money in terms of compliance? Things like that.
Yeah.
Your other category of sales, which is your strategic partners, so like procurement and engineering and finance, right? What you're really selling to them is an easier partnership. You're telling them if we roll out this tool, I'm going to make sure that people can get your approval easily without having any concern. People are not going to be able to go around us or go around you. It's going to be consistent processes. We're launching, a whole program that goes with it, right? It's not just the tool, it's the tool and processes. So you're basically ensuring that their job is going to be easier because you're bringing more efficiency to the table.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I guess it's hard to argue with that, really, if you're saying, oh, we're taking this off your plate and this will be easier. And yeah, contracts can be generated in a few clicks rather than a whole load of back and forth and waiting and everything like that, I suppose. So yeah, that's it. It's a great way to look at the different benefits and understand how you can sell them into the various stakeholders. On things such as integrations and merged processes, what does that process look like to make sure that you're communicating the correct value, if that makes sense? Is that something you would have gathered from the relationships that you've built up, that you've mentioned?
Yeah, so when I'm starting out early and just building relationships, I talk about the core kind of universal benefits of CLM, but I don't really launch into specific details until I've started to get a sense of what the company actually needs. Because that will dictate my RFP process, right? So once I understand like where the company is at in its maturity level, what my budget is, how many contracts we're running, what are our biggest, pain points, that's when I start to go out and look at what CLM might be the best fit for us. And as I start to narrow down those options to maybe my top 2 or my top 3, that's when I start to build out my tech roadmap over the next couple of years, looking at like, what is year 1 going to look like? What's year 2? What's year 3? That's when I start going to the teams and saying, okay, based on, what we have available to us, here's what specific benefits I can promise you. If we get this tool, we can integrate it with your AP system. If we get this tool, we can integrate it with, HubSpot or Salesforce. and kind of really starting to map out for them what it would look like in the next 3 years if we rolled out a CLM.
So we've talked about what it is that we're selling to the stakeholders. How do we go about selling that into them practically?
It's a lot of listening, right? I think most of selling CLM or being a legal ops person is listening instead of talking. Like I said, understanding the team's highs and lows, knowing when to leave things alone and when to improve. And also just knowing at what speed everyone can tolerate the change management, right? So you can bring in a tool and not end up rolling, you can take it slow. You don't have to rush things, or you may need to get some key features in the door right away. So there are teams that I've been on that really, like, at the beginning, they probably really only needed someone to make a centralized Google Drive and run, or buy, shut down everything except one HelloSign or DocuSign account and make sure all the signatures are flowing one way. So that little things like that could take care of the problems at the beginning. And then when you're ready to solve the bigger issues, you can do that. And then some teams are just ready for full CLM, and that comes with everything, right? So it comes with mapping out what the integrations would look like with the different stakeholders, selling to the customer, and then buying the tool itself. And then you do have to continue to sell it throughout its life cycle. I think that's the other thing to know is that, like, the sales process of CLM doesn't really stop for a long time because you can get people to let you buy a CLM, but actually getting them to use it is a whole separate process. Change management could be change management is a whole week's worth of podcasts.
No, you're right though. And especially because I think it's easy to forget, because if you're working in the legal team, you're working with contracts day in and day out. Whereas some of your internal clients might only be working with them once a week, once a month, once a quarter, once a year even. So I guess continually selling it to make sure people don't default to the more traditional way of pulling together their contracts. When getting buy-in for your CLM solution, you need to sell the concept to your various stakeholders. Firstly, you need to raise awareness of the cost of the current contract management situation to these stakeholders. This means highlighting the strategic cost, how the current way of managing contracts is holding the company back, the financial cost, how much money is the company losing because of this current process, and also the operational cost. Who is affected in the company and how are they affected? Then you need to prove the positive impact that your new CLM solution can offer. This means highlighting strategic benefits such as integrations, merged processes, and ease of access, as well as cost savings and efficiency benefits. Display and deliver these well, and your stakeholders will find it difficult to say no. I think that's a great point. It's an ongoing sales process of that. And how do you continue that? And how do you ensure the kind of continual engagement and selling of the CLM that you've chosen?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about working with your internal teams, right? So like I said, legal and finance especially. If they have a really tight relationship and those teams have undergone kind of, really close development exercises together and they're working in harmony with each other, they'll be able to become experts in the tool, right? And they'll be able to build their processes and kind of the services they're offering the company around that tool and be good business partners to the rest of the company when it comes to using the tool. It would be very hard to continue to sell a tool if those teams weren't, super users of it and they weren't happy using it. So that's one of the most important things, right? Is like getting in on my team and making sure that my team is really happy with how the tool is running and that finance is happy and that both teams are actively using it all the time so that they can be great champions for the tech itself, right? And then that does lend itself to a lot of natural change management in the sense that, like, if both of those teams are using the tool every day, they've built their whole processes around it, people are naturally going to have to come through that tool. And they're also going to have access to a lot of like resources and having their questions answered. So that's one of the key ways. And then the other one is, right, just providing a really good set of resources and training materials and also just really good customer service to the company. So your users that have to submit a contract twice a year or 3 times a year, they may not remember the tool by the time they get in next time. And
Yeah.
if all you have is like a single page on a website and no one's really answering their questions, then they're not going to want to use the tool again. But if you have robust teams that are happily using that tech and working around that tech and who are providing constant customer service to the rest of the company when it comes to using that tool, that's really when you're going to see, you know, easier adoption.
Yeah, great point. And I think especially because a lot of in-house lawyers are working in the tech space now, but even outside of the tech space, the other teams already have a piece of software usually, or some kind of tool or piece of kit that they're using on a daily basis. So I think it's important as well for legal not to be afraid of trying to persuade other teams that this, like, a piece of software is a great idea, because I think they will be familiar of the value that a piece of tech can provide from their own experience in their own team. Usually, of course, you might experience a bit of friction when trying to add another one to their tech stack, of course, but at least hopefully they should be familiar with the concept of a tool such as this, I suppose. And you mentioned as well about, so you build the relationships as soon as you come in, and then what are the kind of touch points with the other teams, and what do they look like, for example, to create buy-in? So at what point in the investing in a CLM process do you speak with the various teams, and what does each interaction look like? Is it an email? Is it a meeting? Is it a brainstorming session? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so definitely meetings for all of them. I'm a big favor of scheduling meetings and kind of getting that personal touch. For some teams, it's a lot more of a brainstorming mapping exercise. For, like, example, procurement or finance, right? Meeting with them to understand their processes, and then kind of brainstorming live how our processes work together. So even before we start talking about tech, thinking about how are people coming to finance to get their invoices paid? How are people currently coming to legal to get their contracts, you know, negotiated and approval for it to get executed? Are they even going to the right place to begin with? And then just kind of building out kind of some rough new processes to merge those two. So working together to create materials, if they don't already exist, to direct people to legal and to finance at the right time. Make sure that people in the company really understand the role both those teams play. So kind of building that early advocacy within the team, kind of saying, hey, you know, you're my partner. I'm going to advocate for you to the rest of the company in the training and the materials I'm building, even before we get tech. So that way, when we do get tech, you already know that, like, we're bonded, and that you can trust me and I can trust you, and that we're working together. Yeah. Teams like sales and product and marketing, it is meeting based, but it's not as much brainstorming. It's really understanding their pain points with legal to date. So a lot of those teams that I meet with, right, they just generally at the early stage just don't have much context about what legal does, because they haven't had a lot of interaction with legal. Or if they have, it's just been kind of a source of frustration, right? It's I submit my contract to legal and I don't hear anything for 2 weeks, and then I get it back, and my customer's mad, or you know, legal holds all the templates and it's hard to get the template from them, and I don't understand why I can't just have access to DocuSign myself. So it's a lot of kind of hearing those frustration points and kind of talking them through that and helping them understand that I'm here to work on improving those things for them, and that, you know, just to hang in there with me and we'll get there. And providing a little bit of education too on what legal does. Like, why what's the benefit of having a in-house legal team? I think there's not been a lot of personal branding done by legal teams to date. I think they're getting a little bit better at it, but certainly one of the jobs that legal operations does is kind of go out to the rest of the company and advocate for the lawyers on the team, and say, you know, they actually are trying to help you. They're here. They're doing a great job, and kind of making sure everyone knows who to talk to. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, super important point. But yes, as you say, I think we're seeing more and more of that. And thankfully, with the rise of legal ops and generally legal becoming more integrated into the business, it is breaking down barriers, hopefully, between the legal team and the rest of the business as well, which is, pretty cool. And if you've engaged these various teams throughout the whole process, and you've taken on board their feedback and their thoughts, and you're addressing the issues that they've raised, I mean, they can't argue, right? They'll have to get on board. But yes, as you say, change management, it takes a bit more there as well, and we'll no doubt cover that topic in more detail on another day. And I guess just to tie it all together, how long would you expect this process of buy-in to take, I suppose?
It really depends on the company that you're working for. When I started at Dapper, I spent maybe a month and a half in meetings, and then I bought a CLM and I rolled out the CLM in 3 months. And then there was about 2 months of, training and rollout after that. So that was less than a year. But if you're working at a bigger company where the teams have been around for a while, so a public company, I really would, based on my experiences over the last couple of years, I would say give yourself at least 6 months of just looking at the administrative functions, looking at the existing tech stack, understanding what the teams are doing. It's going to take you a lot longer at a bigger company to earn kind of that trust, because the teams have already been operating for a while, and some things are already set in place, and it's going to have a lot more tech and a lot more kind of historical process that you're going to have to really become an expert in before you can go in and say, I'm going to bring something new in. Because I think one of the worst things you could do is go in somewhere and it's kind of like offering advice without even listening to the person that asked you in the first place. And you don't want people to feel like you're just coming in to make a change without really understanding them. They need to feel like you've seen their benefits, and you've seen the benefits of the work that they've already put in, and you've seen the gaps and really understand it. So 6 months of groundwork, and then getting out of CLM within the first 1.5 to 2 years would be the goal in a really large company.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. I don't know, are there any kind of final points to tie up how to secure buy-in from your internal stakeholders?
Yeah, I'd say, lean on, a lot of the points that I hit on in terms of strategic benefit, right? Like integrations, merged processes, cost savings, data mining. There are numbers around that you can use to present. And I would say lean heavily on your vendors to provide you data and kind of talking points that you can use to bring back to the company. Lean heavily on your network in terms of like other people in the legal ops community that have been through what you've been through. So kind of like we touched on in our previous episodes, like really reaching out to your network and not being afraid to ask for, the lessons that other people have learned. There's a ton of people out on LinkedIn that have become CLM experts in the last couple of years, right? And that are happy to share the mistakes that they've made and what they would have done differently. So just really, really preparing for those conversations and really making sure that people felt like you put a lot of effort into understanding their concerns.
Yeah, great advice. And yeah, I highly, to iterate your point on asking your vendors for support. As a vendor, all of your customers have kind of been through that, trying to get buy-in from their internal stakeholders, and we have a lot of communication with the customers, obviously. So yeah, there's certainly some templates and support materials that we've provided, and I'm sure other CLM providers will have created as well. So definitely do engage heavily with your vendor, and they should be able to provide you with some support materials and advice and an ear to listen to any frustrations that you're having and help you out there. So that's a great point as well. Thank you very much. Well, I think that's about all we have time for today. So thank you so much. It's been a delight talking about all things CLM and buy-in. And it is a challenge. It certainly is a challenge that people face, especially driving a change from within the legal department when, as you say, lots of teams often don't have too much engagement with the legal team at the current time. But thankfully, things like legal ops and legal tech are helping change that. So it's an exciting time.
And CLM too. I think CLM has changed what in-house legal looks like, which is, it's exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll change your relationship for the better with other teams.
Yes.
It's super exciting. Well, thank you so much. And we will no doubt have you on soon to talk some more fun